Hello ladies and chaps, and a jolly good welcome to you. I am Baron Quertier. Thank you very much for joining me for this update video in Hellion. That's right, update 0.2.8 is here finally, and in my opinion not a lot has changed really. There's nothing really new added to the game. It's the same old things, mostly bug fixes. And wait a minute, this isn't what I wrote. Some bastard stolen my script. Oh crikey, get rid of that crap. Yeah, fuck that away. Right, gonna have to wing it now, I'm afraid. No, there are plenty of new features. The devs have been mightily busy, and they've done a mighty good job of it. First of all, this thing is gone. Yes, goodbye Sarah, or Mule, or RGs, whatever you want to call it. It's no longer our starting vessel. It's still in the game, but you have to find them. So we'll get rid of that. There she goes. Right, we now spawn with this thing. Yes, the Steropes, as I think it's pronounced. This is our new starting vessel, and let me take you on a nice guided tour. So as you can see, we have a new kind of airlock for this ship on the starboard side of the vessel. It's a big round door that slides open. And just be aware that this vessel is a game changer. It's going to take some getting used to for many people, I imagine. And you'll see why in a moment. I'll explain why as we go along. So through the airlock door brings us into this prep room with suit racks and the amenity supply drawers. Bang a quick right and there's a doorway, although the door does appear to be missing somewhat. And on the other side of the doorway is a supply room, or cargo room you could say, with some shelves, some weapon racks, and that kind of stuff. Continuing on, obviously the bridge here, the bridge door, open that up, go through, and the first thing you may notice is there are 3 seats, although the 2 rear seats are not yet interactive, but that might be a thing, you never know. Security panel on the left here, and dock and control lever on the right to dock and undock. In the back right of the room you have a personal defense supply cache here, that can hold 2 weapons, 2 pistols and ammunition, and most importantly the pilot's chair and controls. Now in the opposite direction towards the rear of the vessel is the engineering room with the power supply panel and life support panel. Now take note of the power supply here, you only have solar panels, there is no fusion reactor, so bear that in mind when planning out your adventures in Hellion. So you need to have sun coverage to build up your power supply, otherwise you might struggle somewhat. Though it does have space for 3 core containment field generators for the capacitor here. And opposite that you have the life support panel, and again bear in mind this ship does not have an air generator, only an air filter, so bear that in mind as well when releasing large quantities of air out of your airlock. It's not a good idea. And in the corner here we have our singularity cell detonator, and a slot for a single warp cell. This ship only allows 1 warp cell to be fitted at any one time, although it is much more efficient with warp. But that being said, with only 1 warp cell fitted, you're going to have to plan out your moves and plan stop-offs and things like that, so you can swap bits around and all that good stuff. One final thing about the Steropes, and this also goes for the RGs as well, there's no longer a grapple to grapple onto things. You now have a anchor point, which is the bit that juts off underneath both ships, and every single module will have an anchor point. It looks a little bit like a landing pad, and it's kind of changed the way we dock up to things. The Steropes, I didn't mention before, doesn't have an airlock to attach. You have to anchor onto something and then EVA yourself through space to the airlock of the module or whatever it is you're attached to. More on the ship changes in a moment. On to other general improvements. A few technical things. Server admin added to gameserver.ini file. Doesn't mean a lot to me, I'll have the technological mindset of a goldfish, but I'm sure others appreciate that change. Spawn station from station blueprint test. Again, this is a nice change for server owners, they can spawn in their own stations. That's a nice little touch there. We have community moderator and long-time Hellion player Chief Jedi to thank for that little improvement, so thank you very much old chap, I'm sure many people will appreciate that. There has been some turret targeting improvements, not sure if they needed that to be honest with you, but hopefully it stops me shooting through walls. Storage full notification on recycler, and resume warp after server restart. That should come in quite handy. There's been a shooting improvement. For the life of me, I'm not sure what that entails, but the PvP aspect of the game is starting to be brought along. And player/objects movement improvements. I guess these improvements are exactly what they say they are. But something else for you chaps that like to build huge monolithic stations. Place interactive decals on entrances to auxiliary corridors. In a nutshell, you can now label your doorways. So when you have your big stations, you can now label where things are and what things are. If you have any visitors, I get lost in my own station often. I get lost in my own ship, to be honest with you. So yeah, you won't get lost anymore, and you can find things a lot more easier now because you can put a label above the door. There are a whole host of small changes and bug fixes. I'll be here until the Hellion sequel comes out to get through them all, to be honest with you. But basically they normally range from things like collision optimization, sound effects for the airlock is back as well, that's a good move, tool tips on resources, station icon, outpost icon, Steropes ship icon, there's some new flag decals, the Steropes is now the rescue ship as well instead of the mule. And there's just other things regarding the server hostings and stuff like that I don't really understand. If you are really interested in these sort of things, I suggest you actually look through the patch notes for what bugs have been fixed and stuff like that. But there's a huge list of it as per usual. Now back to the main event, the Steropes. As you just saw a very little clip there of me just buzzing around in it. Very manoeuvrable, very powerful in its RCS movement. So be aware of that, it's very sensitive. Yes. Aside from that, there has also been some other changes to piloting, particularly the interface. Now this is a bit of a balance between interaction in game and having the game run smoother with less bugs. For example, there are no more interactive controls in front of you anymore like there was before. You simply look at the seat or the little pilot screen in front of you and press F and you appear in the seat at the controls. But holding the Alt key you can now free look around in your pilot seat. That should come in quite handy, and letting go will snap it back to the front again. And in order to change to the nav map or the docking view, you simply press 2 or 3 relative to whichever one you need, and 1 will take you back to the cockpit view. And pressing 4 will turn on or turn off your lights, whichever you prefer it to be. The nav map has also seen some jolly good improvements. It's much easier to scroll around and look at the system, so it's much easier to find what you need. You can still scan with the icon on the top left. And if you'd excuse the experimental tab in the top right here, there's some tabs here which allow you to change from what ships are authorised to you and distress calls and that kind of thing. It will bring up a list of all that kind of stuff there. So have a play around at that at your heart's content. Setting up a warp has also been made slightly easier. You simply click warp to or set up custom orbit. Make some small adjustments by just grabbing your warp point and moving it around. And on the right there you'll see all the relative information to your warp, your distance travelling and that kind of thing. If you're setting up a custom warp, press warp 2 and it will show you the time until the warp jump, the time it will take you to get there, the power it's using, the fuel it's using, and here you have these icons. These help you to determine what's affecting your warp, if it's lack of power or if you've got modules attached and all that kind of good stuff. Once you're ready to go, you simply click initialize. There's also a really great big arrow now pointing you to where your maneuver node is, which is very handy. And another new improvement, you no longer have to wait for the countdown before pressing J to initiate the warp, it will now jump itself. This does however mean you can send your ship to warp without you in it, so bear that in mind. It might come in handy, or it might be disastrous for you if you're not careful. So once the countdown's gone by and you're making yourself a nice cup of tea, you just get taken to warp, as simple as that. So I say bravo to the devs, they pulled another fantastic update out the bag, new toy for us all to play with, and a bunch of other brilliant improvements too. I suspect there will be a little bit of backlash regarding the interactiveness of the piloting panels now, but I think the balance to keep the game running smoother is probably better. So I hope you all enjoyed the update as much as I did, and I hope you enjoyed this video bringing you the latest news from the update. I'd also like just to point out on personal notes that myself and a bunch of other Hellion players, a large group of us, are putting together a Hellion community event where we build our big stations around the system and all that good stuff. For more information, click on my Discord link in the description below. If you're interested in that, it's going to run all this wipe until the next update, hopefully, and it should be bags of fun. We're going to inject some scenario based stuff into it too, so don't miss out on that, whatever you do. Again, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like, please comment, tell me what you think, please subscribe for more, and make sure you follow me on all necessary media outlets. All necessary links will be in the description below. I am Baron Quertier. I hope you have a very nice day and hope to see you all again very soon. Goodbye.